And before we go into a short afternoon break, we are going to deep dive into the manufacturing ecosystem and elaborate a bit on the challenges of startups and corporates. For this session, I'm asking my colleague David Kames on stage. David works as a project manager at CLCs of EIT Manufacturing, and he conducted a study on startups that develop and produce physical products in Austria and Germany to get a deeper understanding of the most pressing challenges they face. Later on, Professor Sebastian Schlund, who is the head of Institute of Management Science at the Technical University of Vienna, he will present some of the highlights of the industry panel Made in Austria. David, the stage is yours.
So there is no later on. We are staying together on the stage, and okay, something's going wrong. Great start. So first, let me say that I'm very happy to stand here together with Professor Schlund, as I'm kind of following his career, especially in Austria, from the very beginning, because I was one of his first students in the lecture of process and project management. Then I was one of his first employees at the Institute of Management Sciences, the Department for Human Cyber Physical, no, HCCPAS, right? Can you explain?
Actually, nobody of us invented the name. That's an endowed professorship, and the name is Human-Centered Cyber Physical Production and Assembly Systems. But it's about assistance systems in manufacturing. And it is always very sad to lose excellent people, but it's always very nice to meet them again. That's why I'm very, very glad to stand beside David, who left the TU Wien to join EIT Manufacturing, actually, last year.
And now we would like to ask you to put out your phones. We want to see your cameras. Take a picture of us and scan the QR code, because we want some activity from your side.
And so actually, we forget the introduction. We completely changed the setting today. So I will not tell you some results of the study. We will do a little, let's say, quiz with you. We will get you involved and show you by that way a little bit what we found out about the situation in the manufacturing industry, and especially in the hardware startup ecosystem in let's say, the German-speaking world. So, for example, Austria and some neighboring countries there.
Maxime, I'm not seeing your phone, so please scan the QR code.
Yeah, you have to play with us, because they told us that several hundred people are here, and as we are scientists, we need a big audience, and so please help us.
But there will be another opportunity later, so let us proceed. Sebastian, stage is yours.
Yeah, we thought a lot about, let's say, the right introduction for the topic. And as you might have seen in the program, I think the headline was like challenges for the entire ecosystem. So to narrow it down, at least from what I'm concerned, one of the overarching topics today, talking about manufacturing in Europe, talking about manufacturing in Austria and other countries here, is that one, is technology sovereignty. So it's the question what we in Europe, in the European Union, in all the European countries are capable of doing and innovating in manufacturing, in technology. And I think I brought the right picture. I think everybody who knows the products knows the story behind that. Otherwise, please Google it there. And it's a very, very good example how to lose the sovereignty in technology in Europe. In that case, in Germany, but it's the same story for other of these countries. And we think actually that manufacturing is like directly in the center of technology sovereignty, and that's like a topic that's far beyond individual startups, it's far beyond individual chairs at the university or EIT Manufacturing. It's a challenge for all of us. And I think to stay, let's say, sovereign, to stay proud and neutral as Europe, as European manufacturing industry, we have to think about that one, about that issue. And startups, I think, are the, let's say, the lever we have the most to shape the future of technology, to shape the future of technology sovereignty in manufacturing. So
again, last chance for you.
Last chance to start. Now it gets interactive a little bit. So I think we start with some questions and some information about, let's say, the general role of manufacturing in Europe.
You are collecting a lot of hertz, so somebody's a big fan of you, Sebastian.
It's my fan, thanks. Yes. So let's start with the market. At least that's the headline. I think we have a dedicated question about that for you. What do you think? What share of the European GDP, so the gross domestic product, does the manufacturing industry have in Europe? I think if you look at the phone, you might have the chance to answer or to insert your answer for that. We wait. Let's say we stopped with 500 players, didn't we? Oh. No, that's fine. Thanks for joining. Thanks for helping us. So,
People still coming in. Okay, 17 players.
So let's have a look at it. We should have clicked early on, no? So we're still practicing a bit, but we have more questions, so it's only the first one where we practice. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What do you think? Time's up. The right answer is about 20% of the share of European GDP is still manufacturing industry. That does not seem to be much, could be higher. But if you think about, let's say, the industry sectors, the companies that are directly related to manufacturing industry, the importance is even much higher. So today's share is 20% in terms of the GDP. In terms of the workforce, I think it's a little bit
higher.
It's a little bit.
So here the letterboard.
Okay,
congratulations.
Let's go on. Still talking about the market. I think we continue about the challenges for manufacturing industry, and there we've got a question as well prepared. It's about the demographic change. I think everybody is aware of, and demographic change is affecting pretty much every country in Europe. And our question is, number of employed persons per retired person in Austria was about 1.7 in 2017. So 1.7 employed person for one retired person. What do you think? What will this number be in 2050? Of course, nobody knows the future, but it's the prediction according to the demographic development over the last years. I think now, we have to start the timer. I have to admit, it's a university question, a complicated question, but as you are a very intelligent audience, you for sure come up with the right answer. You've got 4 options, and the right one is for sure 1.15. So pretty much one retired person per one employee. So if you do not see this demographic change, or let's call it demographic trap, I think at least now you should be aware of that. So let's continue. What's the most popular measure of Austrian manufacturing companies to avoid supply chain problems in the future? That's actually one of the questions of our industry panel. And I think I do not have to explain the importance of supply chain issues and resilience nowadays. So there we start the question.
There are 4 possibilities: increase inventory, diversify suppliers, digitalize supply chains, and regionalize suppliers. Meaning deglobalization, kind of.
By the way, I think last autumn we talked about shortages for microchips. Today we talk about shortages for microchips, for metal, for bicycles, even for white paint. There is a shortage in Austria. So the most important one I think you picked was, no, I didn't get it, was I think increase inventory, wasn't it? No.
Shit.
No,
Sorry.
We skipped it. You broke it, David.
I broke it, sorry for that. But actually just one person answered the correct answer, so congratulations for that. 58% of the Austrian companies in the panel made in Austria answered that their measure to avoid supply chain problems would be to diversify suppliers. Quite just 1/3 went with regionalized suppliers, so that this could be surprising for some people that are talking about deglobalization.
So, the timer already gave us the next question. Let's talk about sustainability a little bit more. What do you think? The annual waste generation is expected to increase by how many percent by 2050 if we continue, let's say, our life as we did over the last years? We give them too much time, I think.
Yeah, seems so.
It's so good. Time's up. 40, 50, 60 or 70%. The right answer is 70% by 2050. So, yeah.
According to the World Bank, so
yeah.
They have quite a lot of money to finance studies, so I think.
But the good thing about it is if we change our behavior, that the answer will change as well. So let's rethink the sustainability issue. And of course, manufacturing sector is responsible for a lot of that. I think for about 1/3.
So Maria, you're placed two. No, Steffi, congratulations. But you have some time to keep up because we have some other questions.
Far from over yet. So now I'd hand over to David, who actually conducted a study about the hardware startup ecosystem in, as I said, in Austria and some other countries.
Yeah. So basically now you know the challenges that are ahead, and our idea was that you probably have now some business ideas which then you want to tackle these future hurdles that are coming to our society and to the manufacturing sector. We will publish in the upcoming weeks the hardware challenge white paper, and it's based on the EIT Manufacturing DLC study on German and Austrian ventures, that aim to take a physical product into mass distribution. So there are different kind of ways how to define a hardware startup, but our definition is that a part of the business model is a physical product. So the first question is kind of a broad overview. So what, in your opinion, is the main challenge of hardware startups? This section is a bit easier than the previous one, so I hope somebody will get a lot of points for that.
Not that you increase the pressure right now on the audience.
So we have production, recruiting, product development, certification, supplier management, and venture capital availability. So, as I said before, it was quite easy because actually all of these answers were correct. We wanted you to collect some points because we were not expecting such an intelligent people here. Yeah, what I can say, so you see that actually recruiting is something all ventures has to fight with. You see that venture capital availability is also something that basically every venture has to kind of struggle with. But you see that the other three challenges or four challenges are very specific for a manufacturing startup or a hardware startup.
Well, it's right to come back to the panel discussion we had earlier on. Actually, I think the innovation stuff, the product development wasn't a big deal. The big deal was the commercialization and everything that goes with it. So it's perfectly in line with what the colleague said earlier on.
Yeah. So I prepared such a visual expression to kind of see what the difference is between usual startups, which is very difficult to say what a usual startup is, but you know, most of the investors go for software as a service, and we wanted to kind of compare it with the hardware startup for you to see what the actual challenges are. So the main asset of basically every startup is time and money. So this is what you have to look for. You have to be quick, you have to manage the time to market in a shortest possible time, and you need investments from investors, you need grants, so you need to get money. Of course, you have recruiting problems, which are already a topic. You have to find the right sales channel. You have to pivot to find the right customer, or maybe to find a completely different area how you want to save. We heard before that sometimes the people go from B2C to B2B and the other way around. Then, of course, you have to manage your growth. You have to have great leadership. We heard it in the introduction in the morning that leadership is extremely expensive, and it's connected with some psychical pressure that you face. And it's something that you have to know how to do. Then, of course, you have the topic with IP, so intellectual property. You have to kind of showcase what your business idea is about, but at the same time, you don't want to show everything because then everybody can copy it and does it himself. So we saw it in the previous pitches that this is a big issue. Now we are coming to the special hurdles of hardware startups. So when we started the study, it was at the beginning of this year, we asked what are actually your challenges? And the answer was, we need more money, we need more time. And then we dig deeper, and I mean, it's kind of not a surprise, but the startup said, okay, we have some advantages if compared to 10 years ago. We have rapid prototyping, you have 3D printers all around, you have maker spaces. Keep in mind that it's focusing on Austria and Germany, so probably in different regions there would be other challenges they have to face. But here you have to face the challenges with prototyping the product. You need some DIY skills to actually build the prototype. And then in the later phase, you go into even a deeper water where you have to face even more problems. You need more money, you need more time for that. And that is the transition of the prototype into a ready product, which is production ready. So usually you have to do some certification. This depends very much on the area you're operating in. So if you think about healthcare, this a huge amount of normative expectation that you have to fulfill. That comes together with building up good quality management, and you have to find the right suppliers. So I think suppliers were not a topic today, but it's very hard for a startup to find the right supplier, to find a supplier that is actually willing to cooperate with a startup. So yesterday I actually spoke with Creatize. I don't know, we are at a manufacturing event, so does somebody know Creatize? They are offering cloud manufacturing services. So basically every company can order products and components at their web store very easily set. And they said they're actually avoiding working together with startups because it's too dangerous and too risky for them because they're not good customers in that way. So when you manage that, you have to set up a production or contract a manufacturer. There's a special issue if you are really innovative that usually no contract manufacturer is actually able to produce your product. And on the other hand, you have the same issue as with the suppliers that they basically don't really want to cooperate with startups. And then, of course, you have to manage the whole supply chain. So from a point of an investor, you see on the right side a huge complexity, many variables, many risks. And that means usually you tend to go to the left side to software as a service business models where you know at the beginning you need just workforce basically, so working hours. You have a low working capital, and when you put in your money, you can scale up. So basically an investor comes in and scales the business, and he can await a quick return on investment.
But hang on. Keep in mind what we said up front. We need you there, actually. Talking about technology sovereignty, talking about manufacturing, talking about our future, we need you there. Yeah. Otherwise, if we do not have any hardware startups there, what about the demographic change? What about the circular economy? And so that's an issue for all of us. It's an issue for you as the founders of startups. That's an issue for us, for universities, for EIT Manufacturing in any case, and for the entire ecosystem, for the funding as well. So do not get frustrated by David's pictures there. So we just want to ease the way a little bit.
Now we can continue with the quiz. Again, please prepare for answering. We have again 20 seconds.
Oh, they already dropped out. Please rejoin.
So which phase is the most difficult one for a hardware startup? Transferring an idea into a prototype, prototype into a product, or the scaling of the product? Okay, we actually expected the same answer from our hardware startups, to be honest. And we asked just the startups that already managed to get their product onto the market. And actually, they said the most challenging part is to transfer the prototype into a product. This is because of the issues I was talking about before, finding suppliers, finding a contract manufacturer, or setting up a production on yourself. The scaling, I mean, when you have the product, when you have the first customer or the first couple of customers, then you will for sure find some corporate which cooperates with you, or you will find an investor that invests. But really, the biggest problem is to transfer the prototype into the product. And we tried to quantify this problem because the valley of death, our colleagues were speaking about it before, that's a known issue here. And we wanted to quantify it. So we asked our startup what the deviation is between the planned and actual product development time in a hardware startup. We specified that product development means the time between prototype to a product, or transferring a prototype to a product. So that's the last question.
That's the hardest one.
It's the hardest one. No, actually it's easy. Or it's easier than the previous one.
We'll see.
Yeah, it was easier. So our N was quite small, to be honest, but we have around 40% asking that the deviation was more than 1 year, and 40% answering that the deviation was between 6 and 12 months. And when you are looking at this number, you should especially keep in mind that that's the deviation. That's not the time they planned for the development. So this part is a huge issue, especially if you consider how long you are perceived as a startup in the usual ecosystem players, like in accelerators or incubators. And for instance, in the German High-Tech Gründerfonds, it's just for 3 years. In Austria, usually AWS and FFG is perceiving you as a startup for 5 years. We at EIT Manufacturing are kind of aware of these problems, and we say that we support companies that are not older than 7 years. But this is a huge deviation if you think about the pressure of the investor side and of the whole problems that it's connected with. Now, Steffi didn't want, that's good, because she helped me with preparing the slides. So who is 60? Oh, Maxime. Congratulations. So you see, we have real experts at EIT Manufacturing, because Maxime is my colleague from EIT Manufacturing.
So you already gave away the presents usually the speakers get, didn't you?
Now we have 5 minutes time, so maybe should the professor do the wrap-up, or?
Should I? Yeah, actually, I think that the message should be pretty straightforward. Actually, we started with technological sovereignty. I think, you know, we didn't really well explain that issue, but I think it's helped us to introduce that hardware issue and to underline why hardware startups are very important to us and why we consider them to be even more important, not only to our like personal space, but for, let's say, the future of Europe within this ecosystem. So the questions we raised, actually, we didn't come up with answers. but it's, you know, as for the research guys, it's always the same. But we came up with questions. First of all, who takes the risk of investing? You know, it's always easier to invest in, you know, a startup that does not have that many tangible assets. Second one, who guides them through the normative jungle? I think we dropped the questions about certifications, but there was one question about the certification. If you develop a product, usually you're convinced with the innovation, but you are most of the time not perfectly aware about all the certification that you have to achieve in order to bring the market on the product, who supports you there and who knows when you need some support there. And the third one that's directly related into one of the, let's say, main findings of the study, how to facilitate the transformation of a prototype into the product that usually comes with a deviation of 6 months to a year or even more, and who, let's say, bridges the financing, who's taking responsibility to help hardware startups on their way into real products and into the scaling.
And the answer is EIT Manufacturing.
It's like kind of an advertisement. It might be EIT Manufacturing. Let's hope that it's EIT Manufacturing. And for sure, what I convince is that EIT Manufacturing is one of the, let's say, tools to achieve that. And as you said, the more hardware startups you help, I think the better it is for our future in Europe in the manufacturing industry. And it helps us with the challenges that are ahead of us. So.
You see that we are kind of obsessed by QR codes. On the left side, you can register to get the white paper about hardware startups and their challenges. On the right side, this is kind of our joint project from Sebastian, Professor Walter Meyerhofer, and EIT Manufacturing CLC East, which is the industry panel made in Austria. Some of the insights into or actually one question was based on this study, and on the 14th of October we present the new study for 2022. So we would like to welcome you there, and you can check the previous studies on the website. Thank you very much, and we have 2 minutes for questions if there is any.
Or 2 minutes for applause, no worries.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.